You are listening to the Business Talk podcast. I am your host Deepak from India. It's a privilege to welcome Dr. Anna Isabel Canhoto, Professor of Digital Business at the University of Sussex Business School, to today's podcast conversation. Dr. Anna's research explores the digitalization of services, investigating the drivers of adoption, user experiences, and broader societal impacts, with a special focus on situational vulnerability. Her recent projects explore the impact of generative AI on health-related decision-making, the adoption of smart home technologies, AI-powered personalization, and the digitalization of SMEs. A specialist in case study methodology, Dr. Canhoto values its holistic approach and flexibility in incorporating diverse data sources. Her work also employs interviews, social media analytics, and experimental methods, committed to ensuring that public investment in universities benefits society. She collaborates closely with SMEs, local government, and other stakeholders who often face barriers to funding research. With over 20 years of teaching experience, Dr. Anna combines case-based learning with digital innovation. Her work spans integrating machine learning to support students, creating experiential simulations, and training researchers in responsible AI use. She has pioneered digital learning initiatives at London School of Economics, Henley Business School, and beyond, co-developing the Google Online Marketing Challenge and leading online programs for doctoral researchers. Dr. Anna holds a PhD in Information Systems from the London School of Economics and Political Science, an MBA from the London Business School, and an MSc in European Studies from Technical University of Lisbon, Portugal. She began her academic journey with a BSc in Economics from the New University of Lisbon. In this episode, Dr. Anna Isabel Canhoto offers valuable insights from her research, digitalization and well-being, how features, tasks, and contexts shape inclusive technology, where she explores how digital tools, their design features, and the context in which they are used can foster or hinder inclusivity and well-being in society. Let's get started by warmly welcoming our guest, Dr. Anna Isabel Canhoto. We are delighted and privileged to welcome you, Dr. Anna. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Deepak. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Professor, the paper emphasizes the digital well-being emerges from the interaction between technology, the user, and the nature of the task. How does this triad reshape our understanding of what makes a technology experience supportive versus stressful?
Sure. So this project that we will be talking about examined how residents in a region of England interacted with the digital services provided by the local authority and what determined that residents had a positive or a negative experience. So you asked me why we looked at the interaction between these three factors: the technology, the user of the technology, and the purpose for which the technology is being used. In order to understand why the same technology, say for instance an email, could sometimes enhance the well-being, for instance saving time, and other times would undermining, like waste time. So we adopted this approach, this triadic approach, because digital technology really is an umbrella term that refers to multiple devices and applications, each of them with different technologies and types of use. So email, for instance, is a means of direct communication, right, between myself and the named recipient. I can write as much as I want. I can attach different types of files, but there is usually a delay between the message being sent by me, being received by somebody else, and then something happening at the other end, for instance, getting a reply. So this combination of features means that emails are very good for situations where I need to convey a lot of information, but I do not need an instant response. So we can take this example further and consider different types of users. So if I'm using a laptop, if I have good vision and so on, then it's easy for me to send and receive emails with my local authority. But if I'm using an old mobile device, or I can't see very well, or other reason, then it can be a challenge to use emails. So what I'm trying to show with this very simple example is that whether email or any other technology really supports or hurts well-being very much depends on who is using it and what for. So in our paper, we emphasize that digital technology is not a fixed state, but it's what we call a situated condition, a condition that is shaped by the interplay between the technology features, the user's goals and resources, and the specific nature of the task at hand. So this triad reshapes our understanding of technology, We move away from a simplistic view of technology being either good or bad, instead thinking about what are the specific pathways and conditions that mean that technology is good sometimes and bad other times.
Very insightful. Professor, how do low investment tasks like paying bills and high involvement tasks like housing dispute differently affect digital well-being? And what specific design needs do they each demand?
So yes, it's important to distinguish between the type of task. So when we pursue a task, let's say buying a car, for instance, we face a certain degree of risk. So we may not have considered all relevant options, or we may underestimate the cost of owning the car because we forgot to consider maintenance and insurance, or my lifestyle changes and the car is no longer suitable, right? So there is always risk to every task. High involvement tasks are those tasks that have high risk. These could be because they are expensive, they are highly consequential for me, or because they happen very irregularly. So because it's a new situation, there are lots of new factors that I need to consider. So these type of tasks, high involvement tasks, they require me to search for lots of information. I need to carefully evaluate options. I need to track progress and so on. So an organization that provides high involvement services or products like, buying a car or solving a house dispute, as you mentioned, they should prioritize digital channels that enable direct communication, that offer personalized support, and provide a sense of trust and accountability to users. Video conferencing, for instance, can really be supportive for customers. Online navigation aids that help me filter information to reduce information overload. Other tools, so for instance, email communication with named individuals, progress tracking, such as process numbers, progress updates, all of these things minimize the repetition of information, give a sense of continuity, and help develop trust. Conversely, low involvement tasks are those that have very little risk because they are low cost, because I do them lots of times, because the outcome is not really consequential, it's not very important for me. So if I'm completing this type of task, I need technology that reduces friction, right? And helps me speed things. So an organization that provides low involvement services, for instance, just pay a small bill, not a very important money, not a piece of money, or just quickly check some information, should focus on digital channels that are user-friendly, that provide quick access to information. So we want to have clear menus, we have to have navigation, we have to have familiar layouts that do not change a lot, no unnecessary information, 24-hour access. Virtual assistants, they are also very helpful for this kind of situation. So in summary, it's crucial for managers to identify the type of risk involved in each decision and then make sure that technology users are engaging. So understand which type of task technology users are performing, either high or low involvement, and then adapt digital channels accordingly.
The research draws on conservation of resources theory, distinguish internal versus external and tangible versus intangible resources. Could you unpack how various types of users' resources influence whether technology helps or hinders well-being?
Sure. So a resource is anything that I see as helpful to achieve my goal, right? Or to complete my task, anything that helps me complete a task. So some of these resources are material in nature. For instance, I need a device in order to complete my task online. Other resources are more of an abstract nature, we call intangible, right? So for instance, my skills or how much time I have that I can invest in completing this task. Likewise, there are some resources that are intrinsic to me. So my devices, my time, my digital skills. And then we call this internal. And then there are resources that I do not own that are provided by a third party. We call this external. They are, for instance, the national IT infrastructure or training that my employer provides. So things that I do not have myself. And these resources correlate to each other. So the wealthier I have, the wealthier I am, the more money I have, then maybe I have more spare time. Maybe I can invest more in advancing my skills. So these resources amplify each other or hinder each other. So what the conservation of resources theory shows is that the type of resources that I have and the abundance of resources that I have will have a huge impact on my well-being. Because if I have resources my ability to achieve my goals will increase, and therefore so does my well-being, my satisfaction, because I achieved my goal. If I don't have those resources, then I cannot achieve my goals, and then that creates stress and frustration or deprivations, things like that. So bringing back this theory, linking this theory to the use of digital technology, what the theory tells us is that whether the use of digital technology enhances or diminishes the user's well-being depends at least partly on the type of resources that users have and the abundance of resources that they have. If I have the relevant resources to use the digital technology, then I'm more likely to achieve a good outcome and therefore improve my digital well-being. Great.
Your research examines the interdependence between functional and hedonic aspects of technology in shaping digital well-being. In practice, how can designers harmonize this to create richer, more human-centered experiences?
Yes, that's right. We do consider those two types of aspects. So when we review the literature on digital technology, we find two types of work. Some work is focused on the experience of using the technology, so the hedonic aspects, such as whether you are entertained, or whether you feel empowered, or whether you feel frustrated or become addicted, right? And then the other type of work focuses on the outcomes. So whether the technology enables you to achieve your goals or not. But in our research, we felt that what our research shows is that the experience and the outcome of using the technology, they are connected, right? We should not be studying them separately. So if I have an unpleasant experience when using the technology, then that could reduce or even completely negate the functional benefits of the technology. If I'm frustrated, if I make mistakes, what do I do? If I'm frustrated, I will make mistakes. I may abandon the platform and never achieve the outcome that I set out to do. So now you asked me how can designers use these to create richer and more human-centered experiences. So my answer is that designers need to consider how to design the experience of using the technology so that it supports the achievement of desired goals. The two need to be connected. So for low involvement tasks, this means that designers need to focus on efficiency and streamlining processes and reducing effort when using the platform. So they will have to use user-friendly interfaces, very clear information and architecture, robust self-service options that offer convenience and time savings. If, in fact, self-service options, they can also deliver psychological benefits, not just functional ones, like feeling of competence or satisfaction, right? So automated confirmation messages, which is a self-service option, serves the functional purpose of confirming the transaction occurred, but also gives me the hedonic benefit of reassurance and knowing that everything is fine. For high involvement tasks, then designers need to focus on developing trust and giving a sense of progress. So the features will be things like direct communication, very detailed information is helpful here. For emotional taxing tasks, we want to provide interpersonal ability to interact with other persons. This could be on chat, this could be named emails, this could be video calls. So emails, for instance, they are functionally effective for traceability, but also hedonic because they allow users to state the case calmly and reduce conflict potential. Video conferencing is again really helpful because it allows for personalized assistance, a sense of undivided attention, again, hedonic benefits linked to outcomes. And finally, you want to give users a sense of accountability. So designers should implement mechanisms like named individuals, process numbers, and things like that to provide emotional security.
Professor, the same technology might feel empowering in one scenario and overwhelming in another. What factors contribute to such variability, and how can design adapt to shifting user needs?
Yes, that is indeed the puzzle that drove the whole research. And the key message from our paper is that technology doesn't operate in a vacuum, right? So, and it's part of a context. And there are two sources of variability. The first one is the level of financial and emotional risk inherent to the task that needs to be completed when I use the technology. So as we discussed in the previous question, if the technology fits the functional and hedonic requirements of the task, then it will increase well-being. If it doesn't fit the task, it will cause overwhelm. The second source of variability is the extent and mix of resources that the users have. So users with suitable devices, data access, and digital skills, they are likely to have an empowering experience. But users without those resources, they will feel overwhelmed. So by paying attention to the context of use and by designing with both the task complexity and the human resources in mind, then designers are better able to support digital well-being and ensure that there is always a positive experience.
The paper highlights that technology may exclude those with fewer resources or in high-stake context. How can we ensure inclusive digital design that adapts to different user capacities and vulnerabilities?
Yes, that's correct. So our research underscores that while digital technology offers benefits, it does carry the risk of exacerbating social inequality and accentuating the vulnerability of marginalized communities such as ethnic minorities, people living with disabilities or chronic health problems, and people from economically deprived backgrounds. So in terms of the question, how can we ensure inclusive digital designs? I think that we need to follow a two-pronged approach. So the first type of initiatives is related to design directly. So we need to prioritize design that is aligned with the type of task, but also as accessibility at the core. So for instance, we need to use plain language to cater to diverse linguistic and literacy levels. We need web pages and apps that work on older devices, right? Because not everybody will be able to have the latest gadget. We need opportunities for direct interactions with staff, for users that struggle to navigate complex systems, for disability issues or language issues, or who cannot advocate for themselves. And we need to address these basic design flaws like poor color contrast, text-heavy layouts, which can exclude users with visual impairments or cognitive load issues. So organizations need to conduct regular customer journeys analysis for different user groups, and then with particular emphasis on vulnerable ones, to identify these pain points and eliminate them. So that's one type related to the design itself. But then the second type relates to helping users with their resources. It's important to recognize that digital literacy is a spectrum, and we shouldn't assume just high proficiency among our users. Not only that, but organizations, they can invest in initiatives that develop their users' skills. So for instance, in UK, we have one of the leading banks in UK has a program to develop digital skills among its clients. So this way, it's free, by developing the client's digital skills, they enable those clients, especially those from vulnerable backgrounds, to take full advantage of digital banking services. So this helps the organization, of course, because you save money in the end by moving digitally, but also helps those from in vulnerable segments to take advantage to the same services as others, save time, save money, and things like that. So organizations need to audit their platforms for usability and accessibility issues and be responsive from the feedback from users, and also consider how they can support the development of the user's digital capabilities, which is an intangible resource, as we talked before.
Professor, given the unpredictable nature of outcomes, why a feature helps some people sometimes, but not everybody all the time? How can we anticipate when digital tools will support versus train a user?
Well, we can anticipate when digital tools will support versus train by critically investigating these pathways that link the use to the well-being, right? In this pathway, we're focusing on the interplay between the features, the personal resources, and the type of task. So first, we need to consider whether the task is high or low involvement. For low involvement tasks, features that streamline the process, reduce effort, increase familiarity, shortcuts, quick access to information, all of these things will be supportive. And then conversely, features that are overly complex, text-heavy pages, pages that are difficult to navigate, the absence of functions like chatbots, all of these will cause strain, right? And for high involvement tasks, features that facilitate clear communication, detailed information, interaction, personalization, they will be supportive. Absence of human contact, lack of accountability, lack of clear progress tracking, all of these will increase strain, right? So that's one. The second one is we need to assess the resources. If users having reliable physical infrastructure like devices and broadband, sufficient digital literacy and technical knowledge, access to social supports or human intermediaries, all of these are more likely to find the interaction supportive. And then those without access to the devices or reliable internet, lack of digital literacy skills, confidence in the platform, all of these will fear making mistakes. They will not, their accessibility needs are not fulfilled, and they will find it straining. And then finally, you want to remember that digital well-being increases when the functional benefits and the hedonic ones are harmonized. So by systematic evaluating these factors, digital product teams can move beyond anecdotes and isolated experiences. They can critically analyze under which conditions the technology will benefit versus harm, and then we can have a better understanding, as discussed in our paper.
Dr. Anna, if you could advise digital product teams on one central question when designing for well-being, like task alignment, resource support, or emergency context, what would that be and why?
So my advice for digital teams is that when developing tools, they need to ask themselves, one, what kind of task is this technology supporting, high or low? What resources do the users have? And do the functional and hedonic aspects complement each other, right? If the answer is no, then it's time to redesign. If the answer to what kind of task, what kind of resources are the hedonic and functional aspects of the technology supporting the achievement of those tasks without depleting resources? If the answer to this last question is no, then they need to redesign. Why is this advice important? First, it moves from a simplistic view of digital technology. It's not about whether technology is good or bad, but whether it offers the right mix of functional and hedonic features that help these users solve this task. And then because this helps the team move away from this one-size-fits-all mentality, and then start tailoring functionalities and strategies. So this also highlights the need to consider external factors like digital literacy and so on. So by always having these questions in mind, the team can design for genuine well-being and create solutions that are technology advanced, but also equitable, inclusive, and human-centered.
Professor, I'd like to conclude this episode with one last question. This study advances the field by integrating involvement theory and conservation of resources. What unanswered questions or next steps do you believe are essential to deepen our understanding of inclusive digital well-being?
Well, that is a very important question because, of course, because when research answers one question, it raises new questions, right? And it's the same with ours. And certainly more research is needed to deepen our understanding of how to design inclusive digital well-being. So I think that there are two priorities here for further research. The first one relates to the approach that is followed. So it's important to recognize that our findings in this paper, they are context specific to a local authority in England, right? So future research should extend into different applications and cultural contexts to identify which features consistently enhance well-being across high and low involvement interactions, across different cultural factors. So for instance, some cultures maybe prefer direct contact with staff. In other cultures, it's more individualistic. You want to solve the problem yourself. So I think all of giving more of a cultural understanding to the issue will help refine understanding of the global versus local aspects of inclusive digital design, which will be very important, for instance, for multinationals. The second type of research I think that needs to be done, I think relates to the type of digital interactions that we studied. Our research did not explicitly consider interactions with AI, and AI, of course, is a rapidly growing area. So I think that the key next step for us or other researchers is to investigate how AI applications, particularly generative AI, may conform to user requirements and expectations, how they can contribute to the user's resource pool. So for instance, it can help with translation, it can simplify documents, but it could also introduce bias, for instance, right? And how AI may be used in different high and low involvement tasks. I think this would be the second, but really important area of research.
Thank you, Professor Anna Isabel Canhoto, for joining us and shedding light on how the interplay between technology features, task demands, and user resources shapes digital well-being. Your insights offer a valuable roadmap for designing more inclusive and supportive digital experiences. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you once again for joining with us today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure as well.